Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OLC4O. I'm your instructor, Mike Laverty, and today is January 10th, 2023. We are on class number 26. So we're getting really close to the end of the course. So we've got 36 classes in total. So we're about about 3/4 of the way there. So today's class will wrap up unit number 3. So we actually are on lesson 15, and we're going to look at assignments 38 and 39 and just wrap up unit 3. And then next week we can go ahead with unit 4. So we're on week 7 of classes in term 1B. We'll have 2 more weeks following this week. And I'm hoping that we can spend at least 1 week, hopefully more, just going over some key concepts, getting everybody ready for the final exam or the culminating activity. So your last day of class is January 26th. That's our last and final broadcast. So at that point, there will be 36 courses broadcasted and available on the YouTube page. So unit 3, like I said, we'll wrap it up here in week 7, and we should be starting on unit 4 tomorrow. So a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's good because you want to have enough time to review some concepts and make sure that everybody's ready for that final exam, which I mentioned yesterday is that's 20%. That's 20% is your final exam, or what we call a culminating activity. And then 80% is made up of your unit work. So the bulk of your mark does come from the unit work, but of course 20% is a big chunk of that too. So and then of that 80%, 10% is the literacy portfolio. So and more on that as we move along. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just please be aware there are ways you can watch live, 10 to 10:55 Central Standard Time. So you can pause that screen and write that down. As I like to mention, I love to see the videos climbing up the views on the YouTube channel, so that's great. People are subscribing to the channel, so that's great too. So you know that new content has been added. I usually add the content right after the class is done, so it's available as soon as possible, but that's where you want to search. Search me up on YouTube, you'll find my page, and start submitting your work. If you have any questions about submitting work, you're not sure, reach out to your DC, reach out to myself. There's many ways you can get your work to us, and we're here to help you figure out the best way to do that. Of course, the best way to do that is to email me directly. So send me an email to that address. Add me as a friend on Facebook, or just simply communicate with me through Messenger. And there's 2 phone numbers for getting in touch. And you're going to want to phone me, email me, Facebook message me Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 Central Standard Time. So at this point in the course, so again, I know a lot of students are registered in the course as independent learners, so you do have the full school year from September to June to submit your work, but I think if you can, it's good to enforce a bit of a schedule on your own end. So so basically, this is, so after we're on week number 7. So after 7 weeks, ... this is kind of where you should be. So after 7 weeks of starting this course, you should have read all of the pages of Unit 1, 2, and 3. You should have completed assignments 1 through 35. and that's assignments 1 to 3, assignments that are found in units 1 to 3, and make a plan for completing assignments 35 and beyond, right? So, unit 3, ends with assignment 39, which we'll cover today. But that just sort of gives you a general timeline of where you want to be. So we'll talk about the words of the day, our headline, and we'll finish off the last 2 assignments in Unit 3. And we'll know we're successful if we can create, if we can review, our learning goals are going to review the process of using a graphic organizer as planning for an information paragraph, and we'll also review the writing process, again, for completing a journal entry. And you'll be successful if you can use that organizer to make your own, create an outline for a paragraph, and write the paragraph, right? So we'll go into that in detail, but assignment 38, you're not just using that organizer as a tool to organize and plan your thoughts. You do that, but then you do that to help you write the paragraph. So it's a 2-step process. And if you want the full marks, you have to produce the organizer. So this is kind of like a show your work, where for some of these writing assignments, you just hand in a rough copy or a final copy, and you don't submit to me your planning process. But for this assignment, you will most definitely submit your planning process, which will be using that graphic organizer. And then you're going to practice the writing process to complete your journal entry. That's assignment 39. So we'll spend some time on that today. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of political cartoons and just kind of one-frame cartoons. When I was a little boy, I was obsessed with the Far Side comics. I even wrote the author, Gary Larson, or author-illustrator, a letter. And I got one back, and to this day I'm not even sure if it's even him or if it's just a sort of like a photocopy they give to everybody who writes them. But these 2 images relate to what we're talking about today. So we're talking about looking for a job, and we're talking about skills you need in the workplace and the sort of the journey you take to finding a job, and or maybe you have a job and you want to find something different. So it's kind of like a journey. So so we've got the first illustration. We've got a guy looking for a job. Yes, found one. So it can be hard to do, and it can require a lot of work that often doesn't give you immediate results. So it is a struggle. But I think that taking this course is certainly one step in the right direction on finding a job that makes you happy, makes you satisfied, makes you feel like you're part of a team. So it's hard to do, but it does start with building your skills, right? So, and on the right we have the essay assignment, what I did on my summer vacation. And we've got this kind of old school teacher saying, no, I don't want to just check your Facebook page. So again, just kind of calling back to our discussion yesterday about new kinds of technology and new ways of sharing information. So the world has definitely changed quite a bit, even since I was a kid back in the late 80s, early 90s to today. And technology is just starting to influence basically everything we do as a human species. But I would argue that I think the foundational communication skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking are still extremely important, and they're just being used in different different ways. And people do a lot of writing and reading on social media, and it's a different kind of reading, a different kind of writing, but yeah, I would argue that those foundational skills are still there, right? So, and that's what we're here for. So to kind of break down the English language and to um, what I like to do is kind of incorporate some other languages, and particularly the Anishinaabe-Moan language. So I've got a couple of words on the screen here. Nandawabam is a verb which means to look for, to search for something. Of course, the English equivalent, the one-on-one correspondence, is search, to inquire, to investigate, examine, or seek, conduct an examination or an investigation. From the Latin word circus, which means to go around or circle. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So search and circle, they even sound similar, but that's literally what the word search means. And so I think, you know, a key concept there to keep in mind is when you search for something, and when you go around it, that means you sort of look everywhere, and your search is extensive, and you know, to use a cliche, you don't leave any stone unturned, right? You look everywhere. You do a thorough, comprehensive, you know, investigation and examination. Couple more words in the Anishinaabe-Moan language. Mikigade is a verb, which is it is found by someone. They find it. Giwitashka is a verb, which is she or he goes around in a circle. So kind of tying back to the English definition of search, the literal definition. And it's interesting when you look up definitions of words in the English language. Sometimes they're kind of interchangeable, like they're sort of the same thing. But I thought, you know, it's interesting to put three words that are similar. The first one is examine, to inspect or scrutinize carefully. So when you think about your final exam in this course, it's an examination. And I think that's the key word here, right? Is you know, being careful, and it just means you're full of care. And again, I'm just thinking about what we talked about yesterday. It's about you know, a lot of it just comes down to just simply, you know, paying attention and putting the work in to figure out what you really want to say and the point that you really want to get across, right? So I think that you stand out as an individual if you know what you want to say and you've done the search, you've looked around, you've been careful, you've done your inspection, and basically you've just put the work in, and it really does show. Scrutinize, to examine in detail with careful or critical attention, so similar kind of meaning. And investigate, to examine, study, or inquire into systematically, search or examine into particulars of, examine in detail. So I like that word. Systematically, that's a good word. So, you know, when you investigate something, you've got a system in place that you use to find out what you want to find out what you want to know, right? You may not know what the end result may be, but you have a system that helps you get out there. And when you're doing a job search, when you're trying to find the best fit for you and for your family, you've got to do a lot of searching. You got to scrutinize everything. You got to be careful. You got to pay attention. So on that note, today's article from the Globe and Mail is about a really important topic that, you know, I believe was an important topic before the pandemic, but has become a huge topic during and I wouldn't say after the pandemic because it's not over yet, but it's really come to the forefront and people are talking about it quite a bit, okay? So what we're talking about here is employee burnout and then by extension, what employers have to do to support their workers, to make sure that their workers feel supported, they have the mental health supports in place, they can communicate their issues to their boss, and they won't get told, basically to shut up and go back to work, or even worse, get fired. So I think in a lot of workplaces, employees tend to hide problems, and there's a real incentive to sort of there's a real incentive to hide any issues you might have, because you don't want your boss to think less of you, or you don't want your coworkers to think less of you. And so hopefully there's more of a change, a culture change in most workplaces where, it's okay to talk about something. And if you got a problem, and if you're experiencing mental problems in your life, to not look at it like you're weird or you're different, but to look at that as part of life. And hopefully, the workplace can get you the help you need. So that's what this article is about. The photograph they've used here, so that's photographer is Daryl Dick. He took this picture. Clio's leaders, that's a company, believe investing in employees is a big part of the company's success to date. And they've got a couple of old school arcade machines. Got a nice house plant here, nice snake plant. And some of the other photos in the article were yoga mats and just a really inviting workplace. So there's the headline: employee burnout is getting worse. Employers have work to do. So just very quickly, so what we're talking about here is burnout, but not just any kind of burnout. It's burnout experienced by employees, so it's an adjective. We've got that adjective-noun combo that we always see. The next two words, is getting. So they're both verbs, but they kind of function together. There's some verbs in the English language that can't exist on their own. They always have like a helper verb, so that's where the word is. You can't say employee burnout getting worse. You have to say is getting. So they're sort of like a verb combo, and it's getting worse. I kind of debated on this. So is worse an adjective, or is it an adverb? Is it describing how things are getting? So might be an adverb that's modifying that verb getting. So employers, that's a thing. Have. So remember, have is basically just an alternate form of the verb is. So employers have work. So remember, work is a thing. Work is something you do, but in this case, it's a thing. It's a noun. To is a preposition, and do is, of course, a verb. So the employers have work to do. There are the first three paragraphs of the article, which we'll break down here. So you have your lead paragraph, the hook, and the setup. And this one, I wanted to highlight, they've got specific examples to help support a main idea. Now, and this is one of the most, I would say, probably the most common piece of feedback, or it's the thing that I say the most to students when I mark their papers, and that's the great thing about English too, right? I mean, like, usually if you're taking a math course or a science course, it's wrong or it's right, and it's kind of black and white. But with English, it's like it's a little bit harder to grade, not to grade papers, but it's harder to give someone sort of like specific feedback. So many times it's not like you're absolutely wrong in something. You just need to sort of make your writing stronger. And I think that one of the best ways to make your writing stronger is to use specific examples, right? And I think when we're writing, part of the writing process is we just get our ideas on the page. And when we're first just jotting down ideas, we usually start from like general ideas and just basic ideas, and then we develop the ideas and make them more specific and make them more sort of elaborate, more detail. So this is an article about employee burnout and what employers are doing about it. So they start the article off with some really great examples and very specific. So employees at Clio can take their dogs to work and have access to flexible paid time off program. Staff at Schneider Electric Canada can save up their paid time off that the company will augment for a paid leave of absence down the road. And Capital One gives its employees an Invest in Yourself day every month to do whatever recharges their souls. So that's pretty cool. So like if you're in a workplace, you might look at that list and be like, okay, that's cool. I wish I had one of those things. I wish I had an Invest in Myself day where I could take one day off a month and do whatever I wanted to recharge my soul. So that's interesting, right? So that's 3 really good examples that support a main idea. So sometimes your main idea is going to be in your very first sentence, your very first paragraph. That's what normally happens. This author has chosen to give you a bunch of examples and then give you the main idea, right? So you get the hook first. You know, I don't know about you, but when I read those 3 examples, it certainly got my attention. And it's like, I wish I had those things, and that'd be cool, so I want to read more. So you get the hook, and then you get the main idea. And the main idea is that these are just some examples of what employers across Canada are doing to prevent burnout among employees and help them manage their mental health. Okay, so that's the main idea, is that this is going to be an information article that talks about how employees are helping address burnout in their employees. You know, I think employers have you know, they want to keep people. And, you know, it's a lot of work to hire and train people and to have them leave and to get burnt out and then train new people. It's really expensive and time consuming. So they want to hold on to the good people. So they're trying to find ways to do that. Here's a list of relevant items separated by commas. So the Burnaby, BC headquarters of Clio has a yoga studio, a games lounge, community gardens, and libraries. So as you notice, they have a list, and that list includes yoga studio, games lounge, community gardens, and libraries. So when you introduce a list, you put a comma after every item in the list. I myself put the comma on the second last item in the list, in this case, community gardens. That's what's known as an Oxford comma, like Oxford University. So that again, like there's some things in English language are rules that you can't violate. Like you have to have some kind of punctuation at the end of your sentence. You need a question mark, a period, an exclamation mark. You can't have nothing. That's a rule that you can really never violate unless you're writing poetry or something more kind of experimental. But 99% of the time, you have to have a punctuation mark at the end of your sentence. But you don't have to have a comma at the end on your second last item. I do. Obviously, this writer didn't, but that's just that. So that's an option. That's a choice you can make as a writer. Notice that we have the comma after Burnaby, right? So, you know, we do New York, comma, New York. So the city, the town, and the state or the province, they get separated by a comma. And then the whole thing gets separated by a comma too, right? So it introduces, so we put a comma after BC, and a comma separates the two, right? So always good to pay attention to how we use commas. Second example is an introductory phrase followed by a key detail. So the introductory phrase is in addition. So remember, when you use phrases like that, like, you know, during the hurricane, comma, after we got to Winnipeg, comma, underneath the table, comma, you know, so it's those little phrases that introduce a sentence, they always get followed by a comma and then something that expands upon it. So in addition, comma, The company provides every employee with $2,000 a year for counseling services and a monthly wellness allowance, right? So that's pretty amazing, right? I don't know for sure. I'd have to do more research. I'd have to do a little investigating. But I would say that that's probably way beyond what most employers do. $2,000 a year is pretty fantastic. So, and that's every employee. So I'm assuming that includes part-time, not just full-time, right? So that's pretty amazing, right? So, and a monthly wellness allowance. They don't list the dollar figure there, but I'd be curious to know what that is too, right? So let's go back to assignment 38, which we touched upon yesterday. So what you're doing is you're creating an information paragraph. So let's keep that first and foremost in our minds. What's our purpose here? Our purpose is to draft an information paragraph. And who's reading the paragraph? Well, it's an adult who has never turned on a computer before. And how would that person even get started? So that's what you're thinking about, right? So someone who's never used a computer, how would that person even get started, right? So you're going to use the graphic organizer to guide your writing. And when completed, it'll serve as a rough copy of your paragraph that will have at least 5 or 6 sentences. So keyword at least, right? So you have to have at least 5 or 6 if you want to get full or close to full marks. And I would suggest go for 7 or 8, because it's a pretty well, it's not really a huge topic to cover, but I would say that there's many ways you could approach it. So and that's kind of what we're talking about today is how do we want to approach this thing? What's the focus we're going to take? And so so the graphic organizer is it looks like this. You do a title, you do a topic sentence, and then you get on with it. So I did a bit of planning yesterday, so I just want to build upon that. So step 1, we plan, right? And when you do step 1 for this case, I would suggest opening a blank Word document or getting out a notebook and do exactly what I've done. Just write the step 1 plan. And for this one, I would suggest to you, you might even want to just do it like this way, like number 1. These are the steps I'm going to give my reader. So you got to find the power button. You've got to turn that computer on. You need to, ensure that it's on. Then you got to find Word. And then you got to open Word. Maybe type some words or text. And then maybe resize text. And save a file. So these, so I've sort of written down 7 things, and each one of these 7 things might require a sentence. I might be able to combine some of these ideas into a sentence, but these are the 7 things that I want to cover in my in my information paragraph, okay? So I need a title, and I need a topic sentence. So my title could it, and you can simply just copy that title, how to turn on a computer and use Microsoft Word, or like some variation on that theme, right? But for some reason I'm kind of focused on that power button, so I'm gonna do that. So like I'm gonna say powering on your computer and using Microsoft Word for all right. So powering on your computer and using Microsoft Word for the first time. That's going to be my title. And so my topic sentence will be maybe something like this, like even if you've never turned on a computer, this paragraph will, let's see, this paragraph will get you started. And using Word. Okay, so again, this is like, remember, this is rough, okay? This is rough / first draft stuff, okay? So as I've mentioned before, as a writer, you typically want to avoid editing while you write and just get ideas on the page. So those are the ideas that I've got on the page. I'm going to roll with that. So I've got my title, I've got my topic sentence. So even if you've never turned on a computer, this paragraph will get you started and using Microsoft Word. So steps is first. I think I'm going to be, find the power button. And for this one, I'm just going to jot some notes down. So there's like different types of computers. So you'll either have a tower, and monitor, or you'll have what we call an all-in-one PC. So that's, and just thinking back to my library days, helping people out with their computers. So if we're talking about computers, they really come down to two different varieties. There's the all-in-one PC, where the monitor and the tower have been combined, and there's just one machine that has to get turned on. But in the traditional setup, you've got a tower, and that tower is connected to a monitor. So both the monitor and the tower have to be turned on. So you're really turning on two different things. And some computers, as soon as you hit power, the monitor fires up, but not always. So I would say my first steps were going to be, first, find the power button on the PC and the monitor. So that's going to be my first step, is just simply finding it. Second, we're going to be to turn on power. And again, you're just kind of putting notes to yourself. This is like a description of the power button. You know, the sounds to listen for. So as you notice, everybody's process is different. You might just look at this graphic organizer and just start to simply write down sentences or things that are close to sentences. So if you have a sentence in mind, then absolutely just write a rough copy of it. But sometimes you're basically writing notes to yourself. Like, you're saying, I'm going to write a sentence that is a description of the power button. I'm going to write a sentence that talks about the sounds the person should listen for. There's sounds to listen for, and there's lights that the person will see, right? And then maybe like a talk about the startup screen. And then once they've got the and then the next steps will be to sort of you know, to fire up Word once we know the computer's on and the person has gotten going. I'm just going to stop this screen share, and I'm going to share my this screen with everybody. Let's see. Let's put that down here. I want to show you my desktop, okay? All right, so there's my desktop, and I just want to go over a few things that are helpful for people. So, and again, I'm just basing this off my own experience working with people and computers. Not a lot of people seem to be aware of the search feature on a computer, right? So if you don't know how to do something, you just simply type into that search. So if I type in Word, I will see the Word app. It'll come up. So I would have a description of this process, like typing in Word into the search, and then either double click on it or right click on it and run as administrator or open file location. You could do something like that. It shows you where it is, so double click on it, Word opens up. And then double click on the blank document. You know, so any time you're teaching someone how to do something, or if you're writing a step-by-step instructions for someone, it's always best to actually do that thing and then make notes on it, right? So I would do this if you can, like open up a computer, use Microsoft Word, and then you know type in some words. This would be this is what I would do for most people. Would get them to type in some words, get them to augment the words, like to bold it, make it blue, and then make it bigger. And that's pretty much the basics of using a word processor, and then maybe to save a Word document to a file location like the desktop. Like in this case, I will be Microsoft Word test. And then just save that document to the desktop. Because as I mentioned, like, you know, there are entire books written about using Microsoft Word, so you're not gonna teach someone how to use Word, but I think realistically with an information paragraph, you can do the two most important things: how to turn the computer on and how to open up Microsoft Word. And that's assuming Microsoft Word is even on the computer, so it might not be. So you can you could also do a couple other things, like go to you know, like if we search in the word programs, so and that way you can always look through what a computer has, right? And then alphabetically I can go down my list, and I don't actually see Microsoft Word, but I do see Microsoft Office, which is you know, Office contains all kinds of programs like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that. But if you type in Word, and if the Word app doesn't come up, then it's not on the PC, and you would have to, you know, so that might be something you might want to include in the article too, right? So most people want to use Microsoft Word, but if they don't have Word, they can use WordPad, which is like, you know, it's not as advanced as Microsoft Word, doesn't have as many features, but if all you want to do is type something up, it'll work for you there. And there's also other alternatives, like there's Google Docs and things like that. And you can download a free version of Microsoft Word too, but most computers have it. But, you know, just think about that, right? So just think about how is the person going to access it, and, you know, do you have time in your article to actually discuss like how they're going to get it if they don't have it? So yeah, so just things like that. It's always good to walk through it and to familiarize yourself with what's out there, and to actually do the thing that you're teaching, right? So you know, go ahead and do it. And so I'm going to move on to the next assignment, but that's basically what I want you to do for this work. For this assignment. Okay, let's go to full screen again. There we go. All right, so now we're going to talk about assignment number 39, journal entry, success in the workplace. So you're going to share your thoughts on how the ability to read, write, listen, and speak are all important communication skills if you are to succeed in the workplace. Your response will be a paragraph containing at least 5 sentences. Submit both a rough copy and a final copy of your paragraph. So here's what I'd like you to do. So step 1A, planning. So in a notebook, write down these 4 headings and write down as many words, ideas, phrases, or sentences that come to mind when thinking about these words in relation to succeeding in the workplace. So the 4 categories, the 4 headings are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Okay? So that's what I would suggest doing. Just write those headings down. write those headings down and just think of as many things as possible as you can, related ideas. So I would say, reading, I don't know, manuals or instructions. I would say you need to be able to reading, I don't know, employee, or maybe reading emails and company documents. And you need to be able to understand policies and rules, right? Very important, right? In terms of writing, we have, I would say, you need to be able to draft emails, I don't know, memos to other workers. You need to be able to write proposals and, I don't know, let's say related documents. And you may need to maybe, I don't know, communicate with the public. So that's pretty specific, but that's some kinds of jobs will require you to do that. So I'm just simply jotting down some ideas. Okay, listening. Okay, so you need to participate in meetings. Listening skills come with working with others. I would say dealing with customers. And then building and I say building things together, and I mean that in a literal sense, like if you're a contractor or you work in the trades and you're literally building things with other people, you need to listen and know your role. But I think in a more abstract setting, like if you're building a brand or if you're building a company, then you're building something together and you need to listen. Speaking, you need to voice your concerns. You need to, again, I would say same thing, participate in meetings. You need to coordinate with others. And you also need to maybe, again, communicate with the public. So that's what you're simply doing, just jotting down. When you think about reading, writing, listening, speaking, what are the first things that come to your mind? And each one of these things can be built upon, can be used to make a sentence. Okay, step 2, the writing. Okay, so draw upon your own experience in the workplace and or write about where you would like to work. Make some connections between the ideas you generated in step 1, planning, and a specific field or type of job. You could write about customer service, construction, housekeeping, administration, etc. So here's where I would like you to, workplaces and jobs, and then why these skills are important. So I would start brainstorming some jobs. So I would just the first thing that came to my mind is public relations. So that's maybe one thing I'm gonna talk about. So public relations. Um, being a journalism, marketing. So I mean, I'm just choosing workplaces and fields that I think that really lend themselves to communication skills like reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So I would probably focus on those types of jobs. I've never worked as a journalist, a marketer, or public relations, but I've done all three in some capacity. So it's something that I think I could speak about. So I would strongly suggest that you choose a workplace that you have worked in. Choose a field. Like if you are if you have worked in construction, then talk about construction. If you've worked as a secretary or receptionist, then talk about that. If you've been a housekeeper, if you've done customer service jobs like I have, like worked at a Tim Hortons, or you've worked in retail, talk about that. So build this upon what you know. So I would talk about these three things. So write down some workplaces and jobs, and then why communication skills are important over here. So instead of just simply listing a bunch of communication skills, now you're getting into the why, right? So why is always a hard question, right? So questions like what happened and when the thing happened, those are usually relatively easy questions to answer. Why is typically a harder question to answer. So it's easy to list the skills that someone needs. Takes a bit more brain power to think of why they're important. So let's just do some quick thinking on that. We've got about a minute and a half here. Why are these skills so important in public relations, journalism, marketing? And so I'm just going to jot down some ideas like I would say that you're competing for people's attention. You must be careful. There's that word again. You must be careful. You must pay attention. You must be careful with your words. And you have to think about other people and their needs and their wants, okay? And that is at the heart of communication, right? That's why we communicate, right? Because we don't want to feel alone, and we want to be heard, and we want to feel like we're part of our team, and we want people to listen to us, but we also want to listen to other people. We want to hear their message, and we want to feel like we can make a message together. So I would think that, reading and writing, listening and reading, it's always a give and take. Somebody writes, somebody reads, somebody talks, somebody listens. These things, they're all about relationships, right? A lot of what we're talking about here is relationships, right? Professional relationships, right? Your relationship to your boss, your relationship to your coworkers, your relationship to the public, if you're a public relations person, communications, journalism, marketing, right? So, and just really quickly to wrap up here, that leads you to step 3, and then you review what you wrote in steps 1 and 2, and it's time to find the main idea that connects everything and gets your reader's attention. And that's where you might want to write your hook and introduce your main idea to the reader. So I think, in closing here, a really important concept is that sometimes you don't know what your main idea is until you start writing some rough ideas and start to just spitball and just get some stuff on the page. So really embrace that as part of your writing process. You don't have to have things figured out. You just need to generate words and ideas. And once you get the ball rolling, that's when you start to be like, aha, that's where I want to take it. That's the direction I should go in. So that's a good spot to end off today. That is the end of Unit 3. We'll kick off Unit 4 starting tomorrow.